ॐ श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम गोपिका जीवन स्मरणं गोविन्दा गोविन्द सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। शुक्लांभरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रय विनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरह कातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। यस्वानुभावमखिलश्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपमतितितीर्षतां तमोन्धं संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनां। योगीन्द्राय नमस्तस्मै शुकाय ब्रह्मरूपिणे संसारसर्पदष्टं यो विष्णुरातममुमुचते कालव्यालमुखग्रास त्रासनिर्नाशहेतवे श्रीमद्भागवतं शास्त्रं कलौकीरेण भाषितम् एतस्मादपरं किञ्चित् मनःशुद्ध्यै न विद्यते जन्मान्तरे भवेत् पुण्यं तदा भागवतं लभेत् ज्ञानवैराग्यसम्पूर्णान् हरिभक्तिपरायणान् पूर्वाचार्यातहं वन्दे सम्प्रदायप्रवर्तकान् भगवन्नाम साम्राज्य लक्ष्मी सर्वस्व विग्रहं श्रीमद्बोधेन्द्रयोगीन्द्र देशिकेन्द्रं उपास्महे। कलिकालोचितं धर्मं नाम संकीर्तनात्मकं निर्णेतुमवतीर्णं तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। हरे रामेति कृष्णेति नाम संकीर्तनं सदा लोकक्षेमाय कुर्वन्तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्तेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्मः प्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनम्। श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषिभिस्तत्क्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखात् अमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। श्रीमद्भागवताख्योऽयं प्रत्यक्षः कृष्ण एव हि स्वीकृतोऽसि मया नाथ मुख्यर्थं भवसागरे मनोरथो मदीयोऽयं सफलः सर्वथा त्वया निर्विघ्नेनैव कर्तव्यो दासोऽहं तव केशव। श्रीहरे नमः श्रीहरे नमः श्रीहरे नमः। गोपिका जीवन स्मरणं गोविन्दा गोविन्द। Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so I think we're going to do a review of the fourth chapter. So maybe let's see who all is here. So Shobha, can you do one half, and Vijaya, can you do one half? I think we'll do 60.
Second half panikita Rajesh.
Sure. Vijaya, you want to do the first half?
Yeah, okay, I'll try. इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे अदप्रथमस्कन्धः चतुर्थोऽध्यायः। व्यास उवाच इति ब्रुवाणं संस्तूय मुनीनां दीर्घस्त्रीणां वृत्तकुलपसूतं बह्वृचः सौनको ब्रवीत्। सौनक उवाच सूत महाबाह वदनो वदताम्बर कदां भागवतीं पुण्यां यदाह भगवान् शुकः कस्मिन् युगे प्रवृत्तेयं स्थाने वाकेन हेतुना उदसञ्चोदितकृष्णः कृतवान् संहितां मुनिः तस्य पुत्रो महायोगी समतृन्निर्विकल्पः एकान्तमतिर्मुन्नित्रो गूढो मूढ इवेयते.
Again, the first line kalpakaha, ka, it ends with kaha. Okay.
कल्पः
Kalpakaha.
कल्पकः. ओके, कल्पकः. दृष्ट्वानुयान्तं ऋषिम् आत्मजमप्यनग्नं देव्यो ह्रिया परिदधूनसूतस्य चित्रं तद्वीक्ष्य पृच्छति मुनौ जगतुस्तवास्ति श्रीभुम्बिधानसूधस्य विविक्त दृष्टः कदं
Drishte.
दृष्टे
Drishte.
दृष्टेः कदम् आलक्षितपौरैः सम्प्राप्त गुरुजाङ्गलान् उन्मत्तमुग जडवत् विचरन् गज साक्वये कथं वा पाण्डवे यस्य राजर्षिर्मुनिना सह संवादसमभूताद यत्रैषा सात्वती श्रुतिः सखोतोहन मात्रं हि गृहेषु गृहमोदिनाम् अवेक्षते महाभागः कीर्तिकुर्वं सत्ताश्रमम्
The first line end griha medhinam.
மேதினாம். அது
Yeah.
எப்படி பிரிக்கணும்? மேதினாம்.
Griha medhinam.
गृहमेदिनाम्
Yeah.
करेक्ट ताने? ओके.
Yeah.
अभिमन्युसूतं सुत प्राहुर्भागवतोत्तमं तस्य जन्म महाश्रयं कर्माणि च गृह्णीहिनः.
Sorry, second line la mahascharyam. Tasya janma maha ascharyam. So mahascharyam.
महाश्चर्यं तस्य जन्म महाश्चर्यं कर्माणि च गृहीणिनः स सम्राट् कस्य वाहीतोः पाण्डुनां मानवर्तनः प्रायोपविष्टो गङ्गायाम् अनातृद्याधिराक्ष्यम् नमन्ति यत्पादनिकेतम् आत्मनः शिवाय हो नियधानानि सत्रवः कथं स वीर्यश्रियम् अङ्गतुस्यजाम् युवैक्षतो सृष्टुम् अहो सहासुभिः.
First line Vijaya haniya. Shivaya haniya.
शिवाय हानीय. Okay.
Yeah. And the second line வந்து srashtum aho. Yuvai shatot srashtum. I think you srishtum. Srasum.
Okay. Shrashtum. शिवाय लोकस्य भुवाय भूतये यदवुत्मश्लोकपरायणा जनाः जीवन्ति नात्मार्थम् असौ पर आश्रयम् मुमोच निर्विद्य बुधकलेवरम्.
First line bhavaya bhutedani. I think you said bhuvaya.
भवाय भूतेय.
Yeah. Okay. Correct. Okay.
तत्सर्वं न समासक्ष्व पृष्टो यदिह किञ्चन मन्ये त्वां विषये वाचां स्थातम् अन्यत्र चान्तसात्. सूत उवाच वाभरे समनुप्राप्ते तृतीये युगपर्यये जातपराशरात् योगी वासव्यां कलया हरेः स कदाचित् सरस्वत्याः उपस्पृश्य जलं शुचिः विविक्तकेश आशीनः उदिते रविमण्डले.
Again, the first is Shuchi Kaparan, there is no visarga, just Shuchi only, not Shuchihi.
Shuchi இல்லையா? Shuchihi இல்லையா? அங்க விசர்க்கம் இருக்கு.
Jalam Shuchi.
எங்க விட்டேன் நானு? 16
16 பண்ணலாம்.
பராவரஜ்ஞ ருஷிः காலனாவ்யக்தரம்யசா ரம்யசா யுகதர்ம व्यतिकरं प्राप्तं भुवि युगे युगे
அந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் லைன் வந்து ரம் ஹசா. ஓகே, ஃபர்ஸ்ட் லைன்
ரமச.
ராஜேஷ், எனக்கு கொஞ்சம் டியூன் மாத்திரம் எனக்கு கொஞ்சம் ப்ளீஸ் கைட் மீ. ஓகே,
யா, யூ வாண்ட் மீ டு ஸ்டார்ட் இட் ஆர் யூ வாண்ட் டு ஸ்டார்ட்?
எஸ் ப்ளீஸ். யா.
பௌதிகானாம் ச பாவ, எனக்கே டியூன் இல்ல எடுத்து விஜயா வந்து புட்டர் பகவத்கீதா டியூன். इति भ्रुवानं संया भौतिकानां च भावानां शक्तिहासं
அல்ல, பௌதிகானாம் ச பாவானாம் சக்திஸ்ராசம் ததக்ருதம். அது செகண்ட் லைன் தான் உனக்கு வரதுல. அஸ்ரத்ததா நானி சத்வான்.
Okay, say it again. You say it.
செகண்ட் லைன் தானே? அஸ்ரத்ததா நாந்தி சத்வான் துர்மதேதாத் ஹ்ரசிதாயுஷः. दुर्मेधान् प्रसिदायुषः दुर्भकांश्च जनान् वीक्ष्य मुनिर्दिव्येन चक्षुषा सर्ववर्णाश्रमाणाम्. அது போயிடுது டியூன் திருப்பி.
सर्ववर्णाश्रमाणां यत् तद्यौहितममोघदृक्.
सर्ववर्णाश्रमाणां यत् तद्यौहितममोघदृक् चादुर्होत्रं कर्मशूद्धं प्रजानां वीक्षये वैदिकं व्यदादात् यज्ञसन्दत्यै वेगमेवं चतुर्विधं सामादर्व्याज्ञा वेद्या चत्वार उद्धृताः इतिहासपुराणं च पञ्चमो वेद उच्यते. எனக்கு கூட வருது.
You getting it? No, you got it. And the first line la வந்து atharvakyaha, there's a visarga there.
Sure. Saman. Okay, got it. Tadrark vedadara tadrark vedadara baiva samago jaimini kavihi vaishampayana evaigo nishnado yajushamuda अधर्वांगी रसामासीत् सुमन्दुर्दारुणो मुनिः इतिहास पुराणानां पितामेरो महर्षणः तयेदऋषयो वेदं स्वं स्वं व्यस्यग्नेकदा शिष्ये प्रक्षिष्यैस्तच्छिक्षैः वेदास्ते शुकिनो भवन्
शाकिनो भवन् तयेव वेदा दुर्मेदैः धार्यन्ते पुरुषैर्यदा एवं चकार भगवान् व्यासः कृपणवत्सलः श्रीसूत्रद्विजबन्धूनां त्रयीन श्रुतिकोचरा कर्म श्रेयसि मूढानां श्रेय एवं भवेदिह इति भारतमाज्ञानां कृपाया मुनिना कृतम् एवं प्रवृत्त्यस्य सदा भूतानां श्रेयसि द्विजा सर्वात्मकेनाभियादा ना दुष्यद्धृदयं ददः. The first line is like dvijaha, there's a visarga there. Okay,
dvijaha, sorry. नादि प्रसीद हृदया सरस्वत्यास्ते शुसौ विदर्गयन् विविक्तस्त इदं प्रोवाच धर्मवित् धृतवर्तेन हिमाया छन्दांसि गुरवोज्ञयुः मानिदा निर्भयलीको गृहीतं चानुशासनं.
Shobha, first line dhrita vratena hi maya.
धृतव्रतेन वरणं. सारी, धृतव्रतेन हि मया छन्दांसि गुरवोज्ञयः मानिदा निर्बलीकेन गृहीतं चानुशासनं पारदव्यपदेशेन याम्नायार्थश्च दर्शितः दृश्यते यत्र धर्मादि श्रीसूत्रादिभिरप्युत तदा विपदमे दैत्यो ह्यात्मा चैवात्मना विभुः अस्मन् असंपन्न इवाबाधि ब्रह्म वर्चस्य ब्रह्म ब्रह्म वर्चस्य यसत्तमः
அந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் லைன்ல வந்து பதமே தைஹ்யோ ஹ்யா சவுண்ட் தைஹ்யோ
तदा पिबद मे दैह्यो
யா கரெக்ட் யா
ओके किं वा भागवता धर्मा न प्रयाणे निरूपितः प्रिया परमहंसानां त एव यच्युत प्रियाः
அந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் லைன்ல தர்மாக we added a visarga there. You may not have it. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் லைன்ல தர்மாக
எழுதியிருக்கேன். எஸ் சாரி. किं वा भागवतो धर्माः न प्रयाणे निरूपिता प्रिया परमहंसानां त एव युधप्रियः तस्यैवं किलमात्मानं मन्यमानस्य कित्यतः कृष्णस्य नारदो व्यागाद आश्रमं प्रागुदाहृतं तमभिज्ञाय सहसा प्रत्युद्धा यागतं मुनिः यूजयामास विधिवन् नारदं सुरपूजितम् इति श्रीमद्भागवते
விதிவத் அங்க the in becomes a it because you are pausing there. So second lineல விதிவத் comma
पूजयामास विधिवत्.
Yeah, correct.
Not vidivan.
Yeah, double. You will have double na, but it becomes a it and a na because you're pausing there. Comma put another.
पूजयामास विधिवत् नारदं सुरपूजितम् इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां प्रथमस्कन्धे नैमिषि योगाग्ने चतुर्थोऽध्यायः.
Okay, so we'll start Panchamodhyayah. So we'll see here. Amuchichi, you can be student in the first half. Shubhadra, you, and then second, Priya Srikumar and Srividya can be student. Okay, so we'll start. So fifth one is a pretty long in terms of the explanation. So we'll split it into two parts. One is the conversation that happens. The whole chapter is conversation between Narada and Vedavyasa. But one of them, first half, we'll break it into the conversation about what Narada recommends and what the feedback he's giving. And second half, we'll get into the story of Narada, historical story of Narada. That we'll do it in the second half. So we saw in the last chapter, right, fourth chapter, about how the dilemma that Vedavyasa was facing, where he kind of said, you know what, I've done all these things, I've worshipped the Vedas, I've compiled it, I've done the Mahabharata and all of these things, and although I'm filled with knowledge, I'm actually feeling a sense of incompleteness. That's what Vedavyasa was feeling. And even he was kind of, saying that it's possible that it was because I neglected to completely call out the devotional service that needs to be done to Bhagavan. That's how he was contemplating. And right when he was contemplating at the time, we saw Narada come in, right? So that's how we ended the fourth chapter. But somebody was saying something? So that's how we completed the fourth chapter. Now, the Sutta Puranika is continuing the story to Sanaka Rishi and everybody else there. He says that Narada, once he was kind of seated and everything, he was smiling because he kind of understands, what Vedavyasa is going through, right? So he asks, Narada inquires to Vedavyasa in a little bit of a sarcastic tone. He asks him that, are you satisfied by having identified yourself with the mind and the body? He kind of explicitly asks this way because he knows that the only reason somebody can be disappointed or sad or depressed is for one of two reasons. Either you're identifying yourself with the body, so something is not right with your body, so you're disappointed or sad. Or, of course, the major issue is the mind. Even though everything is perfect with the body, your mind is wandering and the mind is causing a lot of confusion. So he knows it is one of these two reasons that somebody is sad. So he looks at Vyasa being sad. He's asking, are you sad because you've identified yourself with your mind or body? And then he also says, Vyasa, you are like a great personality, right? You are Parasharya's son. You are such, composed so many things. So normally Vyasa shouldn't have identified with the mind or body, because normal people who have very poor knowledge will of course identify with mind and body, but Vyasa should not have identified, right? So Narada is very intentionally asking Vyasa that question. Right, and Narada further, validates what Vyasa was thinking, saying that you have done all these great things, right? You have completely delineated the Vedas. You've done everything that needs to be done, and you prepared a very wonderful work in terms of Mahabharata, which kind of describes all the Vedic principles in a way people can understand. So he says, why should you be worried? There should be no reason for you to be worried. right? You've accomplished so much. There should be no reason for your disappointment, right? That's how Narada is posing that question to Vyasa. So Vyasa responds there saying, whatever you said about me is correct. You said everything perfect about me. He says, but I'm still not, right? I'm not able to pacify myself as to why I am feeling this way. He says, therefore, I want you to tell me what is the root cause of my dissatisfaction. There's something buried. Whatever I'm seeing on the surface is just a symptom. There's something else which is the root cause which is causing this problem. I want you to get to that, right, and tell me. And he says, you are no different. Vyasa is telling Narada, you are no different than the Paramatma. He says, because you came from the mind of Brahma, right? You directly worship Brahma, who's the creator. And of course, you have access to the Supreme Lord Narayana anytime you want, right? Unlike everybody else. He says, like the sun, you are able to go anywhere in the three worlds. Narada is one of those characters who can go anywhere in the 14 worlds anytime he wants. And he says, you can also get into anybody's mind. That's when every point in any story, Narada is able to go and guide people through. He says, you definitely know what it is. So, like we go to the doctor and say, I'm having a headache. I don't know why the reason is. That's your job to tell me that. Vyasa is telling Narada the same thing, that it is your job to tell me what my problem is, right? So at that time, Narada then starts. So he starts with the stanza 9. He's saying, Yatha dharma charta. He says, oh, Vyasa, you have done everything very perfect. You talked about the four principles. You talked about the dharma, what dharma one has to do. What is the meaning of everything that somebody needs to do? What is the passion that needs to be there, desires that needs to be there? What is required to get to moksham? You kind of called out all that. But one where you slightly let a deficiency is nathata vasudevasya mahima henu varnitaha. You did not describe enough the mahima, the spotless glories of the Supreme Lord Narayana. You did not define it enough, right? And he says it very clearly because it's saying it's not like you have not talked about Narayana. Because Mahabharata, of course, talks a lot about Krishna. And like we were discussing last time, even if you're talking about the Pandavas, it is as good as talking about Krishna because Krishna is associated with it. They are the devotees of Krishna, so it's equivalent. But still, you have not spent enough time to kind of making Krishna or the Narayana the hero, right, in the middle of all of these engagements. That is one thing that you have not actually done enough, right? And so you've done all these things, but that is one thing you have actually missed a little bit, right? So he says you have to definitely do that, put Krishna or Narayana as a hero in the middle and then talk about it. And then he gives one very good example in this thing. He says that if you think of the crows, right, where do the crows go? The crows go where there's garbage which is actually thrown. Where do you see swans? You see swans when in a very pristine environment, the lake is very clear, it's a very natural beauty that is actually there, and that's the place the swans go. So he says that is the difference, right? He says anytime anybody who's very materially inclined is talking about things which are irrelevant to the world, he's like a gathering of the crows. That's where all those people end up growing because he says that's garbage. But when you think of the Paramahamsas, he says the Paramahamsas are like the swans. They only reside in a place where there's complete spiritual purity. And he says that Paramahamsas, if they have to come and talk about you, then you have to talk about something which is directly related to the Lord, which is the kind of difference he's saying between some of the work that Vyasa has done. And he goes on a little bit more about it as well, right? And he says the other two important advantages, he says, when you talk about the Vedas, you have to say it in the right way, right? There's a way of how you chant it. There's a prescribed way of how you learn it. There's a prescribed way of how you have to perform all the religious sacrifices. But he says, however, anything which talks about the activities of the Lord, the names of the Lord, like the Sahasranamam talks about the name of the Lord. When you talk about the fame of the Lord or the glories of the Lord or the pastimes of the Lord, he says, even if it is imperfectly composed, it does not have to be a perfect compilation like the Vedas. Even if it is imperfectly composed, he says it is okay. People who say that will still be benefited, right? So that is the difference between, when we talk about Sahasranamam and Bhagavatam is, it says even if you make mistakes here and there. I have one student in my Narayaniam class. Every time she comes and asks me, oh, Rajeshji, I forgot to take shower in the morning. Do you think I'm going to get problem because, I have not done that, right? Every time she comes and says that. And I tell her, there are certain things where you'll prescribe that you have to follow some Shuddham and all. But to say the name of the Lord, there is no such rule, right? You can say it anywhere you want. In fact, there are strotams, there are stanzas which even say, even if you're sitting in the toilet, you can say Rama and Krishna. Nothing stops you from saying that. Why should that be an hindrance, right? So there should be no difference when you're talking about the names and the activities of the Lord and the pastimes of the Lord. There should be no constraint about who can say it, how you should say it, or any of those things. So that's what Narada is continuing to explain here. And he says, even if the person who's if somebody is telling about the Lord, even if that person is not the greatest of orators, he is just telling half-hearted information. He's only giving you half the information. He says it is still better to go there than to not go there. Because even hearing half of that information, he says is good. So he's talking about why it is important that that you kind of talk about the Lord. So he says in 13, so Narada is recommending to Vyasa, he's saying, your fame is spotless, your vision is completely perfect, you are saying the right things, you are absolutely truthful and everything. So he says, samadhinanusmara tad vicheshitam. Samadhina anusmara. He says, you go into a state of samadhi, right? So you go through the Ashtanga yoga and you go to the final state of samadhi that you are there. In the final state of samadhi, you rest, O Vyasa. You rest and then you think about the activities of the Lord that is coming in your mind. And whatever comes in your mind, you write that. Right? That's what Narada is instructing Vyasa here, that he should go, that you go into that state of samadhi and then you do it. So then that kind of ends the first half of it. Then very quickly, then Narada continues with a little bit more things, explanation he's giving. He says he cannot necessarily, he's saying some of the not that Vedas are bad or anything, but Narada gives a very beautiful explanation. He says, in all the scriptures that you have done, you are given very clear rules to people. You're saying, you do this, it's punyam. You do this, it's pavam, right? It's bad for you, bad karma for you. If you have done bad karma, here is the prayachittam you need to do to get out of that bad karma. So you kind of gave people a very clear if then else kind of a clear rule. Now he says, what happens? Normal people who are not spiritually inclined, they're literally going to take that rule book that you have given and just follow the rule book. Right? They're not going to understand why the rule was written. They're not going to follow anything. They're blindly going to do it because you have said, because they trust you, right? You have said, you go do this, you go break a coconut, you're going to get benefits. Now, that means that you go, you pray to the Lord, don't expect results. You offer the coconut as an offering to the Lord. But how do people mistake it? Oh, Krishna or Ganapati, because Ganapati is where the coconuts get broken. Before my 12th standard exams in in Bombay, the Ganapati girl used to be filled with coconuts. People used to be like, I'm going to break a coconut, please make sure I pass. Right? So it kind of becomes a transactional because people are only seeing the surface of what you have written. Nobody has the time to get into the depth of what you have written. So because of that, people are blindly following what you are writing, and that is then getting into the wrong way. They are kind of what do you call, incorporating it in a wrong way. He says that's the reason. He says even somebody who has to learn Vedas, who has to get into that, has to first come out of that material activities. Because only when they come out of the material activities, they'll be truly able to understand the essence of the Vedas. Otherwise, they'll blindly follow it and they will think that every activity they're doing, they're going to get a positive karma out of it. And then that's the issue with all of these things. That's the explanation Narada is giving, right? And he says, and he also gives one last one, saying that anybody who has actually gotten involved with Bhagavan at some point in their life, in Purva Janmam or this Janmam, even if they slip, they will always bounce back and come to that. So he says these are a lot of examples. We've seen examples of Ajamila, we've seen examples of Chitraketu. We're going to see a very beautiful charitram of Jadabharata in Bhagavatam as well. So all of them, even though they've slipped off, they've somehow recovered back. So he says it's okay to get started. Even if they slip, they will actually recover back. So with that, he then ends the first half of it with the stanza 21, saying that, so therefore, you please, focus on your mind and then write about this great supreme activities of the Lord, of Mahanubhava, the supreme personality, with very vividly, Adhighanyatam. He says, don't leave anything to spare. Talk about everything that you can write about. And that's what Narada first instructs Vyasa. So we'll stop here, kind of halfway through through this chapter, right? Okay, so stanza 1. So I think I said, who did I pick first? I forgot. I think I said Amuchechi and
Right, Subhadra.
Okay. Sutau vacha atha tam sukhamasinaha. So put a visarga there. You may not have it. Put a visarga. Sukhamasinaha. Upasinam brihachavaha devarshif praha viprashim, comma, veena panis smayan iva. Suthovacha atatham sukamasinah upasinam brihachavaha devarshif praha viprashim veena-panismayanniva.
Atatam sukhamasinaha उपासीनं बृहत्सवाः देवर्षिः प्राह विप्रर्षिं वीणापाणिः स्मयन्निव अततं सुखमासीनः उपासीनं बृहत्सवाः देवर्षिः प्राह विप्रर्षिं वीणापाणिः स्मयन्निव.
Muchichi, you have Suta Vacha, right, at the front?
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I say again or no?
No, as long as you have it, that's fine.
Sutta uvaca atatam sukhamasina upasinam prahachravaha devarshi praha viprarshim veena manniva.
Upasi, first line added Visarga, Sukhamasi Naha.
Oh, didn't I not?
Because you're
Sorry,
comma poternal. And then the last word is Smayan Iva.
Smayaniva. Okay. Think. Sutta uvaca atatam sukhamasinaha upasinam prahachravaha devarshih praha viprarshim veena smayaniva.
Narado Vacha Parasharya Mahabhaga Bhavadah Kashidatmana Paritushyati Shariraha. Again, add a Visarga and comma there. If you don't have a comma, it will just go continuously. Atma Manasa Evava. Narado Vacha Parasharya Mahabhaga Bhavadah Kashidatmana Paritushyati Shariraha Atma Manasa Evava.
Narada Uvacha Parasharya Mahabhaga Bhavatah Kachidatmana Paritushyati Shariraha Atma Manasa Eva Va. Narada Uvacha Parasharya Mahabhaga Bhavatah Kachidatmana Paritushyati Shariraha Atma Manasa Eva Va.
Narada uvaca Parasharya Mahabhaga Bhavada Kachidatmana Paritushyati Shariraha Atma Manasa Eva Va. Narada uvaca Parasharya Mahabhaga Bhavada Kachidatmana Paritushyati Shariraha Atma Manasa Eva Va.
Jignasitam Susampannam. That ma will break it, put a im, sampannam. Next word starts with a a. Apite mahadadbhutam kritavan bharatam yastvam, comma, sarvartha paribrimhitam. Jignasitam susampannam apite mahadadbhutam kritavan bharatam yastvam sarvartha paribrimhitam.
Jignasitam susampannam apite mahadadbhutam kritavan bharatam yastvam sarvartha paribrimhitam. Jignasitam susampannam apite mahadadbhutam kritavan bharatam yastvam sarvartha paribrimhitam.
Jignasitam susampannam apite mahadadbhutam kritavan bharatam yastvam sarvartha paribramhitam. Jignasitam susampannam apite mahadadbhutam kritavan bharatam yastvam sarvartha paribramhitam.
Jignasitam adhitam cha yattad brahma sanatanam athapi shochasyatmanam. So it's one word, shochasyatmanam. So the ma you will break it, put a im, comma. Next word starts with a akritartha iva prabho. Jignasitam adhitam cha yattad brahma sanatanam athapi shochasyatmanam akritartha iva prabho.
Jignasitam adhitam cha yattad brahma sanatanam athapi shochasatmyanam akritartha iva prabho. Jignasitam adhitam cha yattad brahma sanatanam athapi shochasatmyanam akritartha iva prabho.
Amuchichi, that second line, shochasyatmanam, Y sound, okay?
Shochasyatmanam.
Yeah.
Jignasitam adhitam cha यत्तद् ब्रह्म सनातनम् अथापि शोचस्यात्मानम् अकृतार्थ इव प्रभो जिज्ञासितमधीतं च यत्तद् ब्रह्म सनातनम् अथापि शोचस्यात्मानम् अकृतार्थ इव प्रभो.
व्यासोवाच अस्त्येव मे सर्वमिदं त्वयोक्तं तथापि नात्मा परितुष्यते मे तन्मूलम् अव्यक्तम् अगाध. If you want to break it 3 parts there, तन्मूलम् अव्यक्तम् अगाध बोधं पृच्छामहे त्वात्म भवात्म भूतम्. व्यासोवाच अस्त्येव मे सर्वमिदं त्वयोक्तं तथापि नात्मा परितुष्यते मे तन्मूलमव्यक्तमगाधबोधं पृच्छामहे त्वात्मभवात्मभूतम्.
व्यास उवाच अस्त्येव मे सर्वमिदं त्वयोक्तं तथापि नात्मा परितुष्यते मे तन्मूलमव्यक्तमगाधबोधं पृच्छामहे त्वात्मभवात्मभूतम्. व्यास उवाच अस्त्येव मे सर्वमिदं त्वयोक्तं तथापि नात्मा परितुष्यते मे तन्मूलमव्यक्तमगाधबोधं पृच्छामहे त्वात्मभवात्मभूतम्.
व्यास उवाच अस्त्येव मे सर्वमिदं त्वयोक्तं तथापि नात्मा परितुष्यते मे तन्मूलमव्यक्तमगातबोधं पृच्छामहे त्वात्मभवात्मभूतम्. व्यास उवाच अस्त्येव मे सर्वमिदं त्वयोक्तं तथापि नात्मा परितुष्यते मे तन्मूलमव्यक्तमगाधबोधं पृच्छामहे त्वात्मभवात्मभूतम्.
Yeah, and the word, if you want to, you can break avyaktam agadha. Okay, if it's easier. That second line. Okay.
तन्मूलमव्यक्तम् अगाधबोधं
Yeah.
पृच्छामहे त्वात्मभवात्मभूतम्.
Savai bhavan veda samasta guhyam. So that mu, we'll break it, put a im, comma. Next word starts with the u. Upasito yat purushah puranah paravaresho manasaiva vishwam, comma. Srijatya vatyati. So double it and a thi coming there, one word. Srijatya vatyati gunaira sangaha. Savai bhavan veda samasta guhyam upasito yat purushah puranah paravaresho manasaiva vishwam srijatya vatyati gunaira sangaha.
स वै भवान् वेद समस्तगुह्यम् उपासितो यत् पुरुषः पुराणः परावरेशो मनसैव विश्वं सृजत्यवत्यत्ति गुणैरसङ्गः. स वै भवान् वेद समस्तगुह्यम् उपासितो यत् पुरुषः पुराणः परावरेशो मनसैव विश्वं सृजत्यवत्यत्ति गुणैरसङ्गः.
स वै भवान् वेद समस्तगुह्यम् उपासितो यत् पुरुषः पुराणः परावरेशो मनसैव विश्वं सृजत्यवत्यत्ति गुणैरसङ्गः. स वै भवान् वेद समस्तगुह्यम् उपासितो यत् पुरुषः पुराणः परावरेशो मनसैव विश्वं यवत्यत्ति गुणैरसङ्गः सङ्गः.
Tvam paryatannarka, double na, tannarka iva trilokim, put the ma, we'll break it im, comma. Next word starts with the a. Antascharo vayurivatma sakshi paravare brahmani dharmato vrataihi, comma. Snatasya me nyunamalam vichakshva. Tvam paryatannarka iva trilokim antascharo vayurivatma sakshi paravare brahmani dharmato vrataihi snatasya me nyunamalam vichakshva.
त्वं पर्यटन्नर्क इव त्रिलोकीम् अन्तश्चरो वायुरिवात्मसाक्षी परावरे ब्रह्मणि धर्मतो व्रतैः स्नातस्य मे न्यूनमलं विचक्ष्व त्वं पर्यटन्नर्क इव त्रिलोकीम् अन्धश्चरो वायुरिवात्मसाक्षी परावरे ब्रह्मणि धर्मतो व्रतैः स्नातस्य मे न्यूनमलं विचक्ष्व
त्वं पर्यटन्नर्क इव त्रिलोकीम् अन्तश्चरो वायुरिवात्मसाक्षी परावरे ब्रह्मणि धर्मतो व्रतैः स्नातस्य मे न्यूनमलं विचक्ष्व त्वं पर्यटन्नर्क इव त्रिलोकीम् अन्तश्चरो वायुरिवात्मसाक्षी परावरे ब्रह्मणि धर्मतो व्रतैः स्नातस्य मे न्यूनमलं विचक्ष्व
Shri Narado Vacha Bhavatanudita Prayam, Yasho Bhagavato Malam Yenai Vaso Na Tushyeta, Manye Tat Darshanam Khilam. Shri Narado Vacha Bhavatanudita Prayam Yasho Bhagavato Malam Yenai Vaso Na Tushyeta, Manye Tat Darshanam Khilam.
श्रीनारद उवाच भवतानुदितप्रायं यशो भगवतो मलं येनैवासो न तुष्येत मन्ये तद्दर्शनमखिलम् श्रीनारद उवाच भवतानुदितप्रायं यशो भगवतो मलं येनैवासो न तुष्येत मन्ये तद्दर्शनमखिलम्
श्रीनारद उवाच भवतानुदितप्रायं यशो भगवतो मलं येनैवासौ न तुष्येत मन्ये तद्दर्शनं किलम् श्रीनारद उवाच भवतानुदितप्रायं यशो भगवतो मलं येनैवासौ न तुष्येत मन्ये तद्दर्शनं किलम्
यथा धर्मादयश्चार्ता मुनि वर्ग्यानुकीर्तिताः न तथा वासुदेवस्य महिमा ह्यनुवर्णितः यथा धर्मादयश्चार्ता मुनिवर्ग्यानुकीर्तिताः न तथा वासुदेवस्य महिमा ह्यनुवर्णितः
முதல் ராஜேஷ் விசர்க்கம் சாரி முதல் லைன்ல விசர்க்கம் இருக்கு யதா தர்மாத யஸ்சார்த்தாஹான்னு இருக்கு.
Yeah, okay, mine does not have it, and the way I learned also did not have it. So you just remove it in that case, right, to be consistent.
Just one question.
Ah.
The eighth sloga, the natushyataha, or just, is there a visargam on eighth slogam? That's the second line, the middle.
No, natushyeta.
Okay, thank you, Rajesh.
यथा धर्मादयश्चार्ता मुनिवर्यानुकीर्तिताः न तथा वासुदेवस्य महिमा ह्यनुवर्णितः यथा धर्मादयश्चार्ता मुनिवर्यानुकीर्तिताः न तथा वासुदेवस्य महिमा ह्यनुवर्णितः
यथा धर्मादयश्चार्ता मुनिवर्यानुकीर्तिताः न तथा वासुदेवस्य महिमा ह्यनुवर्णितः यथा धर्मादयश्चार्ता मुनिवर्यानुकीर्तिताः न तथा वासुदेवस्य महिमा ह्यनुवर्णितः
न यत् vachash chitrapadam. So both of them, at least in Sanskrit, it has two letters on top of each other. So na yat vachash chitrapadam harer yasho, jagat pavitram pragrinita karhichit tad vayasam tirtam ushanti manasaha. So there you add the visarga, it won't be there, manasaha, na yatra hamsa niramantyu shikshayaha. You can't break that word. Niramantyu shikshayaha. Na yatvachaschitra-padam harir-yasho jagat pavitram pragranita karhichite tadvayasam tirtam ushanti manasaha na yatra hamsa niramantyu shikshayaha.
न यद्वजच्चित्रपदं हरेर्यशो जगत्पवित्रं प्रगृणीत कर्हिचित् तद्वायसं तीर्थमुशन्ति मानसाः न यत्र हंसा निरमञ्जुशिक्षयाः न यद्वजच्चित्रपदं हरेर्यशो जगत्पवित्रं प्रगृणीत कर्हिचित् तद्वायसं तीर्थमुशन्ति मानसाः न यत्र हंसा निरमञ्जुशिक्षयाः
न यद्वचश्चित्रपदं हरेर्यशो जगत्पवित्रं प्रगृणीत कर्हिचित् तद्वायसं तीर्थमुशन्ति मानसाः न यत्र हंसा निरमन्त्युशिक्षयाः न यद्वचश्चित्रपदं हरेर्यशो जगत्पवित्रं प्रगृणीत हर्चित् तद्वायसं तीर्थमुशन्ति मानसाः न यत्र हंसा निरमन्त्युशिक्षयाः.
Next 20 stanzas are going to be these long sentences. So, Tad Vag Visargo Janathaga Viplavo, comma, Yasmin Prati Shlokam Abhaddavatyapi. If you want to break it, that ma, Shlokam Abhaddavatyapi. Naman Yanantasya, Yasam, Naman Yanantasya Yashonkitani Yat, comma, Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadavaha. Tadvagvisargo Janathaga Viplavo Yasmin Pratishlokamabhaddavatyapi Namanyanantasya Yashonkitani Yat Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadhavaha.
तद्वाग्विसर्गो जनदाघ विप्लवो यस्मिन् प्रतिश्लोकमबद्धवत्यपि नामान्यनन्दस्य यशोङ्गितानि यत् शृण्वन्ति गायन्ति गृह्णन्ति साधवः तद्वाग्विसर्गो जनदाघ विप्लवो यस्मिन् प्रतिश्लोकमबद्धवत्यपि नामान्यनन्दस्य यशोङ्गितानि यत् शृण्वन्ति गायन्ति गृह्णन्ति साधवः
तद्वाग्विसर्गो जनताग विप्लवो यस्मिन् प्रतिश्लोकमपद्धवत्यपि नामान्यनन्दस्य यशोङ्कितानि यत् शृण्वन्ति गायन्ति गृह्णन्ति साधवः तद्वाग्विसर्गो जनताग्विप्लवो यस्मिन् प्रतिश्लोकमपद्धवत्यपि नामान्यनन्दस्य यशोङ्कितानि यत् शृण्वन्ति गायन्ति गृह्णन्ति साधवः.
But in the first line, Janatagha, I think you're saying ig or something on the one letter. Janatagha Viplavo. Okay.
Tadvagvisargo Janataga Viplavo. Thank you.
Naishkarmyam Apyachuta, if you want to break it, that Naishkarmyam Apyachuta Bhava Varjitam, comma, Na Shobate Jnanamalam Niranjanam Kutah Punash Shashwat Abhadram Ishware, if you want to break that, Shashwat Abhadram Ishware, comma, Na Charpitam Karma Yadapya Karanam. नैष्कर्म्यमप्यच्युत भाववर्जितं न शोभते ज्ञानमलं निरञ्जनं कुतः पुनः शश्वदभद्रमीश्वरे न चार्पितं कर्म यदप्यकारणम्.
नैष्कर्म्यमप्यच्युत भाववर्जितं न शोभते ज्ञानमलं निरञ्जनं कृतः पुनः शश्वमदब्रवीश्वरे न चार्पितं कर्म यदप्यकारणम् नैष्कर्म्यमप्यच्युत भाववर्जितं न शोभते ज्ञानमलं निरञ्जनं कुतः पुनः शश्वतमब्रवीश्वरे न चार्पितं कर्म यदप्यकारणम्
नैष्कर्म्यमप्यच्युत भाववर्जितं न शोभते ज्ञानमलं निरञ्जनं कुतः पुनः शाश्वतभद्रमीश्वरे न चार्पितं कर्म यदप्यकारणम्.
Second line, Shashwat, you said Shashwat, Shashwat Abhadram. Second line.
Second line. Shashwata. Okay. Naiškarmyamapyachyuta bhavavarchitam na shobhate jnanamalam niranjanam kutah punah shashwata bhadramishware na charpitam karma yadapyakaranam.
Atho mahabhaga bhavan amoga drik, comma, shuchi shravas satyarato dhritavratah urukramasyakila, one word, urukramasyakila bhanda muktaye, comma, samadhi nanusmara tat vicheshtitam. The next three stanzas just say one time, so then we'll transition at 15. Atho mahabhaga bhavanamogedrike शुचिश्रवा सत्यरतो धृतव्रतः उरुक्रमस्याखिल बन्धमुक्तये समाधिनानुस्मर तद्विचेष्टितम्.
अधो महाभाग भवानमोघदृक् शुचिश्रवाः सत्यरतो धृतव्रतः उरुक्रमस्याखिलबन्धमुक्तये समाधिनानुस्मर तद्विचेष्टितम्.
Ato mahabhaga bhavana mogadrike suchirshava satyarato dhrutavritah urugramasya kila panda muktaye samadhina sushrama tadvichekshtitam.
And the last line, samadhinanusmara.
Samadhinanusmara tadvichekshtitam.
Rajesh,
Ah.
in the first line, Susichravah illaya.
And it becomes the is there. Shuchishrava satyarato. Is added.
Okay.
That becomes the is there.
Okay, thank you.
Tathonyatha kinchana yat vivakshatah, comma, pritag drishas tat krita rupa namabhihi na kutrachit kwapi cha dustita matihi. So put a visarga at the end of that mati and comma, matihi. Next line on top of that la, if you have a ir, that goes away. Labheta vatahata naurivaspadam. Tathonyata kinchana yad vivakshatah pritag drishastat krita rupa namabhihi na kutrachit kwapi cha dustitha matihi labheta vatahata naurivaspadam.
तदुन्यथा किञ्चन यद्विवक्षतः पृथग्दृशस्तत्कृतरूपनामभिः न कुत्रचित् क्वापि च दुस्थिता मतिः लभेत वाताहतनौरिवास्पदम्.
ततोऽन्यथा किञ्चन यद्विवक्षतः पृथक्दृशस्तत्कृतरूपनामभिः.
Shubhada, just try that again. Pritag drishas.
पृथग्दृशस्तत्कृतरूपनामभिः.
Yeah.
Okay. पृथक्दृशस्तत्कृतरूपनामभिः न कुत्रचित् क्वापि च दुस्थिता मतिः लभेत वाताहनौरिवास्पदम्. वाताहतनौरिवास्पदम्.
Jugupsitam dharma kritenushasatah, comma, swabhava raktasya mahan vyatikramaha yad vakyato dharma iti taras stitho, comma, na manyate tasya nivaranam janah. Jugupsitam dharma kritenushasatah swabhava raktasya mahan vyatikramaha yad vakyato dharma iti tarastito na manyate tasya nivaranam janah.
जुगुप्सिदं धर्मकृतेऽनुशासतः स्वभावरक्तस्य महान् व्यतिक्रमः यद्वाक्यतो धर्म इतीतरस्थितो न मन्यते तस्य निवारणं जनः.
जिगुप्सितं धर्मकृतेऽनुशासतः स्वभावरक्तस्य महान् व्यतिक्रमः यद्वाक्यतो धर्म इतीतरस्थितो न मन्यते तस्य निवारणं जनः.
The first line, jugupsitam. Ju sound.
Okay, jugupsitam.
Yeah. Okay, so just switch here. I think I had Priya, Shikumar, and Srividya. Vichakshanosyarhati. That's one word. Vichakshanosyarhati. Veditum vibhoho. So the ra that is there, the visarga comma vibhoho. Next time becomes a. Ananta parasya nivrittitas sukham. Pravartamanasya gunairanatmanaha. That is there goes away. Gunairanatmanaha visarga comma. Tato bhavan darshaya cheshtitam vibhoho. Into two times only. Vichakshanosyarhati meditum vibhoho anantaparasya nivrittitas sukham pravartamanasya gunairanatmanah tato bhavan darshaya cheshtitam vibhoho.
विचक्षणोऽस्यार्हति वेदितुं विभोः अनन्दपारस्य निवर्तितः सुखं प्रवर्तमानस्य गुणैरनात्मनः ततो भवान् दर्शय चेष्टितं विभोः विचक्षणोऽस्यार्हति वेदितुं विभोः अनन्दपारस्य निवर्तितः सुखं प्रवर्तमानस्य गुणैरनात्मनः ततो भवान् दर्शय चेष्टितं विभोः
विचक्षणोऽस्यार्हति वेदितुं विभोः अनन्तपारस्य निवृत्तितः सुखं प्रवर्तमानस्य गुणैरनात्मनः ततो भवान् दर्शय चेष्टितं विभोः विचक्षणोऽस्यार्हति वेदितुं विभोः अनन्तपारस्य निवृत्तितः सुखं प्रवर्तमानस्य गुणैरनात्मनः ततो भवान् दर्शय चेष्टितं विभोः
Tyaktva swadharmam charanambujam harehe. Put a visarga comma there. Next line on top of that bha, there's a ir that goes away. Bhajanna pakvota patet tato ittandata. Patet tato yadi. Yatra kva vabhadram abhudamushya. So that im that you break it into ma, you break it into im and a, it will be easier. Vabhadram abhudamushya kim, comma. Ko varta apto bhajatam swadharmatah. त्यक्त्वा स्वधर्मं चरणाम्बुजं हरेः भजन्न पक्वोतपते ततो यदि यत्र क्व वा भद्रमभूदमुष्य किं को वार्त आप्तो भजतां स्वधर्मतः.
त्यक्त्वा स्वधर्मं चरणाम्बुजं हरेः भजन्न पक्वोऽथ पतेत्ततो यदि यत्र क्व वा भद्रमभूदमुष्य किं को वार्थ आप्तो भजतां स्वधर्मतः त्यक्त्वा स्वधर्मं चरणाम्बुजं हरेः भजन्न पक्वोऽथ पतेत्ततो यदि यत्र क्व वा भद्रमभूदमुष्य किं को वार्थ आप्तो भजतां स्वधर्मतः
त्यक्त्वा स्वधर्मं चरणाम्बुजं हरेः भजन्न पक्वोऽथ पतेत् ततो यदि यत्र क्वा वा भद्रम् अभूतमुष्य किं को वार्थ आप्तो भजतां स्वधर्मतः त्यक्त्वा स्वधर्मं चरणाम्बुजं हरेः भजन्न पक्वोऽथ पतेत् ततो यदि यत्र क्वा वा भद्रम् अभूतमुष्य किं को वार्त आप्तो भजतां स्वधर्मतः.
Yeah, the second time you said it correct. First time between the apto and the bhajatam you left a pause because it's abhajatam, but that S symbol it goes together. Second time you said it correct. So apto bhajatam, say it in one word, right? One flow. Tasyaiva hetof prayateta kovido, comma, na labhyate yad brahmatam uparyadah tal labhyate dukkha vadantyatas sukham, comma, kalena sarvatra gabira ramhasa. Tasyaiva hetof prayateta kovido na labhyate yad brahmatam uparyadah tal labhyate dukkha vadantyatas sukham कालेन सर्वत्र गभीररंहसा
तस्यैव हेतोः प्रयतेत कोविदो न लभ्यते यत्प्रमदामुपर्यतः तल्लभ्यते दुःखवतन्यतः सुखं कालेन सर्वत्र गभीररंहसा तस्यैव हेतोः प्रयतेत कोविदो न लभ्यते यत्प्रमदामुपर्यतः तल्लभ्यते दुःखवतन्यतः सुखं कालेन सर्वत्र गभीररंहसा
तस्यैव हेतोः प्रयतेत कोविदो न लभ्यते यद्भ्रमतामुपर्यतः तल्लभ्यते दुःखवदन्यतः सुखं कालेन सर्वत्र गभीररंहसा तस्यैव हेतोः प्रयतेत कोविदो न लभ्यते यद्भ्रमतामुपर्यतः तल्लभ्यते दुःखवदन्यतः सुखं कालेन सर्वत्र रंहसा.
The first line end, it's yad brahmatam. You're saying yada, so that's why it was not landing. Yad brahmatam uparyadaha. Okay. Id. Navai jano jatu katanchana brajet. The in that you have there, put a it because you're going to put a comma there. Katanchana brajet, comma. Mukunda sevyanya vadanga. That's one word. Sevyanya vadanga samsritam. Smaran Mukundang Upaguhanam. So it's Mukunda Angri Upaguhanam. 3 different words, but it will become one long word, so you can't break it. So Mukundang Upaguhanam Punaha. Put a visarga and comma there. Punaha. Next line, the ir goes away. Vihatum Ichena Rasak Graho Yataha. न वैजनो जातु कथञ्चना व्रजेत मुकुन्द सेव्यन्यवदङ्ग संसृतं स्मरन् मुकुन्दाङ्घ्रिपगूहनं पुनः विहातुमिच्छेन रसग्रहो यतः.
Rajeshji,
Yeah.
the second line, is it samsritim or samsritam?
Samsritim.
Tim. Okay.
Oh, did I say tam? Sorry, samsritim.
ராஜேஷ் இன்னொரு தடவை சொல்றேன்ல கொஞ்சம் சாரி
Yeah. न वैजनो जातु कथञ्चना व्रजेत मुकुन्द सेव्यन्यवदङ्ग संसृतं. Yeah, I keep saying samsritim. Huh?
வஜேன் இன்னன்னு இருக்கு இத்தா இன்ன முதல் first line.
That in that is there, right? Because we are putting a comma after that, it becomes vrajet. That it, if you're not having that, you will navejano jatu katanchana vrajen mukunda save, but it'll go together. Because you're passing there, it becomes vrajet. Okay. Mukunda sevyanya vadanga samsritim. Smaran.
பாஸ் குடுக்கலனா அப்படியே படிச்சிடலாமா ராஜேஷ்?
என்னது?
பாஸ் குடுக்கலனா அப்படியே படிச்சிடலாம்.
Pass you can read it continuously, but then then yeah, you can. But then if you want to pause it in between, then that in becomes an it. Okay. Because it's actually it. Brajet is the right word. But because it's written next to a ma, it becomes an in. That's all. Okay. Smaran mukundang dryupaguhanam punaha vihatumichena rasagraho yataha.
न वैजनो जातु कथञ्चना व्रजेत मुकुन्द सेव्यन्यवदङ्ग संस्मृतिं स्मरन् मुकुन्दां कृपगूहनं पुनः विहातुमिच्छेन रसग्रहो यतः. न वैजनो जातु कथञ्चना व्रजेत मुकुन्द सेव्यन्यवदङ्ग संस्मृतिं स्मरन् मुकुन्दां कृपगूहनं पुनः विहातुमिच्छेन रसग्रहो यतः.
Yeah, that first line, last word, I'm hearing an im. Samsmritim, I'm hearing.
Samsritim.
Yeah, correct. Samsritim.
Samsritim.
न वैजानो जातु कथञ्चना व्रजेत मुकुन्द सेव्यन्यवदङ्ग संसृतिं स्मरन् मुकुन्दाङ्घ्रियुपगूहनं पुनः विहातुमिच्छेन रसग्रहो यतः. न वैजनो जातु कथञ्चना व्रजेत मुकुन्दसेव्यन्यवदङ्गसंसृतिं स्मरन् मुकुन्दाङ्ग्रयुपकुहनं पुनः पुनः विहातुमिच्छेन रसग्रहो यतः
idam hi vishwam bhagavanivetaro, yato jagat sthana nirodha sambhavaha tadhi swayam veda bhavams tathapi vai, pradesha matram bhavatah pradarshitam. Idam hi vishwam bhagavanivetaro yato jagat sthana nirodha sambhavaha tadhi swayam veda bhavams tatapi vai pradesha matram bhavatah pradarshitam.
इदं हि विश्वं भगवानिवेतरो यतो जगत्स्थाननिरोधसम्भवाः तद्धि स्वयं वेद भवांस्तथापि वै प्रादेशमात्रं भवतः प्रदर्शितम् इदं हि विश्वं भगवानिवेतरो यतो जगत्स्थाननिरोधसम्भवाः तद्धि स्वयं वेद भवांस्तथापि वै प्रादेशमात्रं भवतः प्रदर्शितम्
इदं हि विश्वं भगवानिवेतरो यथो जगत्स्थाननिरोधसम्भवाः तद्धि स्वयं वेद भवांस्तथापि वै प्रादेशमात्रं भवतः प्रदर्शितम् इदं हि विश्वं भगवानिवेतरो यतो जगत्स्थाननिरोधसम्भवाः तद्धि स्वयं वेद भवांस्तथापि वै प्रादेशमात्रं भवतः प्रदर्शितम्.
So next to first word is a pretty long word. I'll break it. Tvam atmanatmanam. Okay, atmana atmanam, but the two s's coming, so you have to say it together. Tvam atmanatmanam avehya mogha drik, comma, parasya pumsah paramatmanah kalam ajam prajatam jagatash shivaya tat. So the same logic as before. In becomes a it, tat, comma, mahanu bhava yudayodi ganya. That also goes together because that S symbol is there. So mahanu bhava yudayodi ganyatam. Cannot break it, so it has to go as one flow. So next 10, Priya, let's try to do it one time. So we'll stop at 30 and then I want to complete some story here as well. So त्वमात्मनात्मानमवेह्य मोघदृक् परस्य पुंसः परमात्मनः कलाम् अजं प्रजातं जगतः शिवाय तत् महानुभावाभ्युदयोऽधिगण्यताम्.
त्वमात्मनात्मानमवेह्य मोघदृक् परस्य पुंसः परमात्मनः कलाम् अजं प्रजातं जगतः शिवाय तत् महानुभावाभ्युदयोऽधिगण्यताम्
त्वमात्मनात्मानम् अवेह्य मोघदृक् परस्य पुंसः परमात्मनः कलाम् अजं प्रजातं जगतः शिवाय तत् महानुभावाभ्युदयोऽधिगण्यताम्.
इदं हि पुंसस् तपसस् श्रुतस्य वा, स्विष्टस्य सूक्तस्य च बुद्धि दत्तयोः अविच्युतोऽर्थः, इह साउंड, अविच्युतोऽर्थः कविभिर्निरूपितो, यदुत्तम श्लोक गुणानुवर्णनम्. इदं हि पुंसस्तपसश्रुतस्य वा स्विष्टस्य सूक्तस्य च बुद्धिदत्तयोः अविच्युतोऽर्थः कविभिर्निरूपितो यदुत्तम श्लोक गुणानुवर्णनम्.
इदं हि पुंसस्तपसश्रुतस्य वा स्विष्टस्य सूक्तस्य च बुद्धिदत्तयोः अविच्युतोऽर्थः कविभिर्निरूपितो यदुत्तमश्लोकगुणानुवर्णनम्.
इदं हि पुंसस्तपसश्रुतस्य वा स्विष्टस्य सूक्तस्य च बुद्धिदत्तयोः अविच्युतोऽर्थः कविभिर्निरूपितो यदुत्तमश्लोकगुणानुवर्णनम्.
aham puratita bhave bhavam mune comma dasyastu kasyaschana veda vadinam nirupito balaka eva yoginam comma shushrushane pravrishi nirbibhikshatam. अहं पुरातीत भवे भवं मुने दास्यास्तु कस्याश्चन वेदवादिनां निरूपितो बालक एव योगिनां शुश्रूषणे प्रावृषि निर्विविक्षताम्.
अहं पुरातीत भवे भवं मुने दास्यास्तु कस्याश्चन वेदवादिनां निरूपितो बालक एव योगिनां शुश्रूषणे प्रावृषि निर्विविक्षताम्.
अहं पुरातीत भवे भवं मुने दास्यास्तु कस्याश्चन वेदवादिनां निरूपितो बालक एव योगिनां शुश्रूषणे प्रावृषि निर्विविक्षताम्.
ते मय्यपेताखिल चापलेर्भके कॉमा धान्ते धृत क्रीडन. So that again, everywhere that is S symbol is coming, we are trying to say it together. Okay, so dante drita kridanakenu varnitaha. It's kridanake anuvartini, sorry, anuvartini, but that goes together. So kridanakenu vartini chakru kripam yadyapi tulya darshanaha, comma shushushamane munayolpa bhashini. Both of those ni are short knees. ते मय्यपेताखिलचापलेर्भके दान्ते धृतक्रीडनकेऽनुवर्तिनि चक्रुः कृपां यद्यपि तुल्यदर्शनाः शुश्रूषमाणे मुनयोऽल्पभाषिणि.
Rajesh,
Yeah.
the first line there, is it Keedana or Creedana? I'm hearing Creedana, but it's
Yeah. It's Creedana. So if you have key, just make it a Cree. Creedanake. Crasum. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
ते मय्यपेताखिलचापलेर्भगे दान्ते धृतक्रीडनकेऽनुवर्तिनि चक्रुः कृपां यद्यपि तुल्यदर्शनाः शुश्रूषमाणे मुनयोऽल्पभाषिणि.
ते मय्यपेताखिलचापलेर्भके दान्ते धृतक्रीडनकेऽनुवर्तिनि चक्रुः कृपां यद्यपि तुल्यदर्शनाः शुश्रूषमाणे मुनयोऽल्पभाषिणि.
Uchishta lepan anumodito. If you want to break that, lepan anumodito dvijaihi, comma sakritsma bhunje tadapasta kilbishah evam pravrittasya vishuddha chetasaha. So that is put a visarga comma tad dharma evatma ruchif prajayate. उच्चिष्टलेपाननुमोदितो द्विजैः सकृत्स्म भुञ्जे तदपास्तकिल्बिषः एवं प्रवृत्तस्य विशुद्धचेतसः तद्धर्म एवात्मरुचिः प्रजायते.
उच्चिष्टलेपाननुमोदितो द्विजैः सकृत्स्म भुज्ञे तदपास्तकिल्बिषः एवं प्रवृत्तस्य विशुद्धचेतसः तधर्म एवात्मरुचिः प्रजायते.
Priya, two things. One, that first line, bunje, ja sound, in and the ja, okay. Bunje. And then the second line after that, visargas, tad dharma, two da sound coming there, okay.
Tad dharma.
Yeah.
Okay.
उच्छिष्टलेपाननुमोदितो द्विजैः सकृत्स्म भुञ्जे तत्पास्तकिल्बिषः एवं प्रवृत्तस्य विशुद्धचेतसः तद्धर्म एवात्मरुचिः प्रजायते.
ராஜேஷ், அங்க சததர்மன்னு இருக்கு. சத்தர்ம தானே அது fourth last line.
Tadharma. அங்க சேதசஹா அப்புறம் this is that becomes a visarga and comma.
Okay.
அதுக்கப்புறம் தத்தர்ம.
Tat tha. Okay.
ஆமா, அது வந்து because they'll have a da and a dha. So tadharma. Two da, first da, second da. Okay. Tatranvaham Krishna Kathaf Pragayatam, put a im instead of ma, Pragayatam, comma. Next word becomes a. Anugrahena Shrunuvam Manoharaha Tash Shraddaya Menu Padam Vishunvataha, comma. Priya Shravasyanga Mamabha Vadruchihi. Mama Bhavad Ruchihi. It comes, but you can say Dhru sound also, that's okay. Mama Bhavad Ruchihi. Tatranvaham Krishna Katah Praghayatam Anugrahena Shrunuvam Manoharaha Ta Shraddaya Menu Padam Vishunvataha Priyashravashyanga Mama Bhavad Ruchihi.
Shrinuvam or Srinavam?
Shrinavam.
Srinavam, okay. Tatranvaham Krishna Katha Pragayataam Anugrahena Srinavam Manoharaha Tashrathayami Nupadam Vishrunvataha Priyashravasyanga Mama Bhavadruchihi.
तत्रान्वहं कृष्णकथाः प्रगायताम् अनुगृहेण शृणवं मनोहराः ताश्रद्धया मेनुपदं विशृण्वतः प्रियश्रवस्यङ्गममा भव रुचिः.
And the first line, Srividya, gra sound there, okay? Anugrahena.
अनुग्रहेण शृणवम्.
Yes.
Okay.
Tasmin stada labdha rucher mahamune, comma, priya shravasya skhalita, one word, shravasya skhalita matir mama, yayaham etat sadasat swamayaya, comma, pashe mai brahmani kalpitam pare.
Rajesh, the second line la Priya Shravasya's Khalita.
Okay, just make it Priya Shravasya Khalita.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Tasminstadha labdha rucher mahamune Priya Shravasya Khalita matirmama Yayaha metat sadasat swamayaya Pashyemayi brahmani kalpitam pare.
तस्मिंस्तदालब्धरुचेर्महामुने प्रियश्रवस्य स्खलितामतिर्मम ययाहमेतत्सदसत्स्वमायया पश्ये मयि ब्रह्मणि कल्पितुं हरे. हरे. Okay, sorry.
तस्मिंस्तदा लब्धरुचेर्महामुने प्रियश्रवस्य स्खलिता मतिर्मम ययाहमेतत् सदसत्स्वमायया पश्ये मयि ब्रह्मणि कल्पितं परे.
Itam sharat pravrishikavrutu, can't break it, pravrishikavrutu harehe, put a visarga comma. Next word on top of that V, there is the ir that goes away. Vishrunvato menu savam yashomalam sankirtyamanam munibhir mahatmabihi. Again, visarga comma. On top of the bha, there is a ir that goes away. Bhaktif pravrittatma rajas tamopaha. Ittam sharat pravrishika vrutu harehe Vishrunvato menu savam yashomalam Sankirtyamanam munibhir mahatmabihi Bhaktif pravrittatma rajas tamopaha.
इत्थं शरत्प्रावृषिकावृतु हरेः विशृण्वतो मेनुसवं यशोमलं सङ्कीर्त्यमानं मुनिभिर्महात्मभिः भक्तिः प्रवृत्तात्मरजस्तमोपः.
इत्थं शरत्प्रवृषिकावृतु हरेः विशृण्वतो मेनुसवं यशोमलं सङ्कीर्त्यमानं मुनिभिर्महात्मभिः भक्तिः प्रवृत्तात्म रजस्तमोपः.
The first line, Srividya, Sharat Pravrishi. Okay.
Sharat Pravrishi. Okay.
Okay. We'll stop here today on this. There are 10 more minutes. I want to complete the rest of the story. We'll see if we can finish that. So as we kind of know, so the Narada story he's going to tell now. So you can always preach, right? Everybody can preach. We are all good at preaching, but sometimes it doesn't have as much effect as telling that, what, I personally went through that problem. I had to battle that problem and I survived it, and this is what I learned from it. Then it becomes more impactful. So Narada is saying, you know what, Vyasa, like I'm telling you, this devotional service is so important, right? And you may not accept what I'm saying, but let me tell you my own story, right, of how I became who I am today, right, because of devotional service. So Narada is actually going to tell his own story. So we keep wondering, how did Narada become so great, right? So he's going to actually tell his story here. So in this next set of stanzas is filled with devotional service, and this also goes into the sixth chapter. Also, some of it will stop at the fifth, and then sixth he continues that story. So he says, "O Muni, in the previous kalpa of Brahma." So we are in the 51st year, first day of Brahma, which is the kalpa. So Narada is saying in the previous kalpa, all together in the previous kalpa of Brahma, right, where before so many Chaturyugams have passed, because each kalpa has 1,000 Chaturyugams, right? And so he's saying now in that previous kalpa, he says, I was born to a certain dasya. I was born to the maid servant. My mother was a maid servant, right? And she was actually engaged and she was a widower, right? She was widowed. Narada did not have his father at that time, right? So she was a widower, and all this his mother was doing was she was engaged in household work for a Brahmana, one of a very divine person. She was engaged in the household work, and that Brahmana was also, very active in the principles of Vedanta and everything. So that's where she should do household work for that particular person. And whatever she gets from performing all those household work, she used to then come back, and then they had only each other, Narada and his mom. They didn't have anybody else. So she used to take care of him. He was 4 or 5 years old at that time. And then she used to take care of him, and he said they used to lead a very sattvic life, right? And he says once what happens is this Chaturmasyam comes, right? The 4 months where there's rainy season. When the rainy season comes, the sages generally they're not supposed to stay in one place, like we discussed. So they're supposed to go from house to house, village to village, else they'll start liking the food in one person's house. So they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to move. But however, in the Chaturmasyam, they find a place which is a very good place, and they stay there for 4 months, because they do the Veda Abhyasam, they do all their Parayanam, they do all their things in one place, so they can dedicate 4 months of their year to learning something or Abhyasam or to teach also, right? All of that they do in one place. So this sages, in the Chaturmasyam, in one of the years of the Chaturmasyam, they decide that they want to actually do it in that particular village where Narada was there. So just now, anytime any great personality is coming to our town, we all say, you know what, absolutely, we will run that thing, we'll support you, we'll do all those things, right? So the village people are so excited that these great Mahan sages are going to be coming to our village. They're going to be staying here for 4 months and doing their sadhana. So they are all planning. They're saying we should take utmost care of them. We should give them all the facilities. We should do everything we can to take care of it. So the conversation is going on of who can do all this work, right? Somebody has to take care of their ashramam, clean the ashramam, wash the vessels, do all these things. So one of the person says, you know what, I know a maid servant. She works in my house. She's very nice. She's so humble. She's so pious. She absolutely, she adores the Brahmana. She'll do whatever you want, and she's extremely nice. And then we should actually, probably consider her. At the same time, Narada's mother also is thinking, this Chaturmasyam, all these Mahan sages are going to be coming. I wish I get a chance to at least go help them out one day, because we all say, at least one day you come to my house and eat, right? So she can't call them to her house. She says, at least one day I hope I get to go serve them. So she's also thinking at the time. At the time, the house owner calls her and says, you know what, can you come and please take care of them for 4 months? Right, completely clean their house and do everything. So Narada's mother is ecstatic, right? She's like, that is like, what a blessing I have got. So, and then the Chaturmasyam comes, the sages come. So in the morning, 3:30, the sadhus wake up, right? Which means Narada's mother has to be there at 3:30, and she has to clean everything at the time, because they then will kind of Brahma Muhurtam, they will go, they will do their prayers and everything. So she has to be there. Now she has a 4 or 5 year old child. What will she do? Right? She can't leave the child alone at home. So she used to take Narada also and go. So Narada says, as far as I am concerned, I had no attachment. I was a 4 or 5 year boy. That way, Suma, when you were asking, is this Creedan or Keedan? The Krida is coming there because he says, I never used to be attached to any sports and any activities that all the normal 4 and 5 years used to be do, right? He says, I never used to even say anything. Whatever my mother says, I used to listen. I never used to oppose anything. That was just my character, right? That's how Narada was. So initially, when the sadhus are there, and Narada is, the Mahan Sadhus' mother is cleaning. So Narada is out somewhere in the veranda sleeping because it's 3:30 in the morning. So Narada's mother says to him, Narada, all these great Mahans are coming. It is such a blessing for us. You don't have to even get up. Sit where you are, right? Just fold your hands and pray to the sadhus when they're actually coming, right? He says. So the first day, the boy is half asleep, 3:30, when the sadhus are coming out. He wakes up, he then folds his hands and prays to the sadhus. The sadhus see that the boy, they smile at the boy. The next time the mother says, you're sitting in one place, you don't have to do anything. Just stand up. We all have done this to our kids, right? So just stand up and do one folded hands to the sadhus. So next day the boy does that. So it keeps doing. The next day the mother says, okay, now that you are doing this, you're waking up already, you're standing up and you're doing your folded hands. All you got to do is when they're coming, just do a Shashtanga Namaskaram to the sadhus, right? Don't touch them, just do Namaskaram wherever you are. They will see you, right? So the boy does the Shashtanga Namaskaram to the boy. He just listens, right? And then he does that again. The sadhus are watching this. The sadhus continues to see, what, this mother is like really guiding the boy, and the boy seems to be listening. Next time the mother says, step by step, she says, as the sadhus are going to the river to take bath or to do whatever they're doing, he says, just follow those sadhus. He says, you don't have to go near the sadhus. Keep a distance. Don't do anything, she says. You just go. When they go to the water, you just sit there. When they come back, you just come back. So Narada blindly follows. He doesn't do anything. He just follows the sadhus. They go take a bath. They come back. He also comes back, blindly follows it. Then the next time the mother says, now that you are there, you see which way the river is flowing. The sadhus are taking bath there, right? So when the water touches the bodies of the sadhus and the water is coming, you go station yourself, position yourself in a place where that water touches you. You just don't go near the sadhus, right? They don't have to know about it. So the boy does exactly that. He goes, stands in one place. The water washes the sadhus. It comes, it touches on his body. So Narada says, with this, he says, by the pure touch of the water that just touched the sadhus, and the kripai that the sadhus see on me, when they just look at me, the mercy that falls on them, he says, I started getting purified, right? I started getting very purified with just that particular thing. So now what happens is this boy is becoming very, the sadhus are seeing the boy every day. So the sadhu says, okay, do you want to be like my ball boy, right? So like when I'm doing the yagam, I tell, hey, go put this patram here, bring me some water, bring me these things. So the boy says, sure, why not? I don't have anything. He's not going to school or anything. He says, sure, I'll do it. So he starts helping out the sadhus in such small way. And now a point comes where the mom says, what? Previously, she used to take him away and go to other chores. She says, now that this boy is helping the sadhus, he can just be here the whole day and help the sadhus out in whatever kainkaryam they want to do. So Narada says, okay. The sadhus also says, sure, we also need a help. So now Narada decides to be there the whole day. His mother brings him there in the morning until evening. He's actually there with the sadhus, right? So with this, he gradually, continues to kind of do all this. And then this will keep going. So I'll end at some point. So at one point, then the sadhus, one day, his mother was late coming. So the boy, Narada, was like very hungry. So, so one of the sadhus, when he was going to put their plate to wash, there was a leftover morsel meal from the sadhu's plate. So he was also very hungry. The sadhu said, oh, your mother has not come today. Why don't you just finish this off if you want, right? So Narada says, I took a bite out of the leftover food of the sadhus. He says, all my sins went away. He says, because those were such great Mahatmas that, I now became purified, right? By purely just eating whatever food, the remnants of the food that he says. He says in 25, Vishuddha Chetasaha. He says, my mind became completely pure, right? And I became purified in heart because of all of these things. So, and then I'll say one more and then we'll stop here. So then Narada automatically, now previously when he used to just walk behind the sadhus, he used to be like a boy, he used to think about something, blindly walk. Now he starts listening to what the sadhus are talking. Now, what do the sadhus or Mahatmas talk? They don't talk gossip. They are always talking about Bhagavan. They're always talking about the stories of the Lord. So he says, Narada says, non-stop, 24, every time I am there, all I used to hear was about the stories of the Lord and the greatness of the Lord and all the incarnations of the Lord, everything that they were doing. So he says, gradually, by purely because of their mercy, I started hearing this more and more. He says, I started liking them more and more. Previously, he was just listening because it was falling in his ears. And then he said, I started really absolutely enjoying it. Right. And we'll stop it here because it's 3:30. The story will go on for some more time. So Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha, Gopika Jeevana Smaranam, Govinda Govinda, Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. काहेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. So next week, next week I'll figure something out, right? We may have to reschedule it because of other couple of events happening next Sunday. So we'll probably reschedule or something. Okay.
Thanks, Rajesh.
Thank you,
Thank
Rajesh.
you.
Bye, everyone.